Welkom bij In Conversation with. Vandaag live over enkele minuten bij House of Khepera zijn we live met drkimaninehusi. We gaan het hebben over taal en cultuur. Kimaninehusi heeft een boek geschreven, Libation. Hij heeft nog andere boeken geschreven, maar we willen voornamelijk het hebben over taal, de originele van taal, niet alleen de gesproken taal, natuurlijk de geschreven taal, wat de origine daarvan is, en de cultuur. Bepaalde gebruiken die we hebben, die we nog steeds kennen en waarvan we niet weten dat die gebruiken nog steeds in onze cultuur, of dat die in onze cultuur gebruikelijk zijn, of dat dat onze cultuur is. Welkom, Brother Kimani. How are you?
I'm pretty okay. Thank you very much.
Yes, I'm good. Yes, I'm good. Thank you, thank you, thank you for joining us. We are waiting for Sister Benji and King Don Karleon. We are a little bit early, so everybody's a little bit surprised. It worked that we are early. We're a little bit early, but everybody was there, so we're good. Thank you for joining. It worked. Some of us are still linking with our Facebook followers. So we are copying and pasting the link and sharing it on the other socials. Make sure that every one of you, if you are on Facebook, that you mute your Facebook page. Otherwise we'll hear an echo. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is, other than really thankful for you guys to be here. And thank you, Kimaninehusi. Dr. Kimaninehusi is very busy always when we're talking. He's like, oh, I have to go into a call, or I have to do this. So he's really busy, doing a lot of great work. He will talk about it in a minute. First, what we are going to do is tell you about, well, my name is Eyedontha. I'm from House of Khepera. And this summer, we are doing some live sessions with different scholars, different speakers, just to give you the basics, the basic information. So you can go online and find the basic information about our culture and our history. On your left hand, that's Don Karleon. Don Karleon is also he's from Congo, also a singer, and knows a lot about the history and culture through his heritage. And on the other side, it's Sister Benji. Sister Benji, can you please put your screen a little bit down so we can see more of your beautiful self? Thank you, always so wow. Hi, Sister Benji. Welcome also. Sister Benji is a well-known person in the Netherlands, also doing her tours, a teacher and a historian, and also a part of House of Khepera. Thank you all very much. I would like to do it a little bit different today. I would like, when you are, is to tell a little bit about yourself. So it's not from me, but for yourself, what you want to share with everybody, because we started a little bit earlier. So I would like to start with Sister Benji. We start with our guest, Brother Kimani. Could you please tell a little bit about yourself? And then we, Sister Benji, and then Don. And then Don can do a recap about what we've been doing all these weeks. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
My name is Kimaninehusi. I'm an African who was born in Guyana, in South America. I trained as a teacher. I attended the University of Guyana, University of London, University College of London, and University of London. Did all kinds of crazy things. And my major interest is in learning and teaching about African people I was involved in sports and played cricket, soccer, and competed in track and field at international level. And that's about it, I guess.
Wow.
Yes. Thank you, uh, Dr. Kimani. Sister Benji, could you please tell us something about yourself?
Well, I'm Sister Benji, Margaret Alexandra Dankerlui, born in the Netherlands, out of Africans born in Suriname. And I've been also trained as a teacher. I'm a history teacher by profession, um, singing. Um, I like to do everything that's connected to getting people the information about the history, how we came here in the Netherlands, what the connection with the Netherlands is, and what I really want to focus on right now is our cultural heritage that we brought from Africa and how we created our own part of the culture in the places that we have ended up through the diaspora. So there's a lot to say, but I'm gonna
Always
leave
so
it there.
modest.
Yeah,
Always so modest. Yeah.
yeah, we got to leave it there.
Yes. Thank you, Sister Benji. Don, could you tell something about yourself,
Yes,
please?
yes, 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 yes. Good evening, everyone. Jambo, Hotepu, Mbote, Professor Kimani.
Jambo and Ugo.
I am, friends call me King Don Karleon, Cezanne Kona. Actually, I'm a social worker and also a musician. Part of a great legacy, which in my grandfather was the one who led the path for many of us to follow, according to African history. Part of the Hawk team, House of Khepera team, um, and also involved into many, many, many cultural, spiritual, African sacred science, as I could say. It's honor to have you on the show, if we may call it a show or a lecture, online, the new stage of talking from distance, since our forefathers used to speak through I could say it, could I call it
Online.
I, and now we're having this new technology that we can get involved to spread the knowledge among our people. Now that's been said, I have to make a recap on what we've been doing for the past 5 weeks since we
But can
started.
I say something? Because we introduced ourselves, everybody introduced themselves. One person, one person really didn't introduce
Oops.
herself.
Yes.
Real.
From there, so I really would like to
And
ask Sister I to really introduce herself and
What is this?
tell us some more about her work with House of Khepera and, just give the people some information.
that's a good
what?
one, Mr.
What
Benji.
is this? This is takeover. This is a
Yeah,
Sister Benji takeover.
you tell
Everybody,
them
Well,
Bounty.
yes, okay. Well, my name is Eyedontha from House of Khepera, of course. Started House of Khepera 5 years ago and been working with some great speakers and learning so much. And I'm really feeling privileged about that. Um, Spoke to Dr. Kimani, I think the first time was 2 years ago. And that was through Paul, Paulo Bina. Paulo Bina introduced me to most of the scholars. So that's really, really good. Thank you, Paul. And I think we are very privileged to have this honor to speak with the people who we are still amongst us and can tell us a lot. I've been to a lecture of Dr. Kimani last year, um, and it was organized by Bero Bigman. That's where we first met in the flesh. And I've learned so, I still have my notes and the notes I made during that lecture, and he spoke a lot about the libation and the culture. And from that point, I was like, whoa! I wish a lot of people could hear this. We could, reach more people. So this is what I do. I try to get the connection, not so much on my personal page, but now we're on my personal page. That was a little bit of a mistake, but more through House of Khepera, and more to bring our rich culture and yeah, history. That's what I do. So let's get on to it. It's 10 minutes past 8. We have a lot to talk about, and Dr. Kimani is, I could see he's waiting for the question. So please, King Don Karleon, could
Yeah,
you?
I will do a small recap also so that
Sure,
Professor
yeah.
Kumani can get where we coming from and which path we follow with his aim tonight. We started with Dr. Kaba actually, who introduced us. We had exposed us in a small introduction into African spirituality, sacred science, how, who, and when, and most of the habits that was conduct through spirituality. Um, and also a little explanation about the area that we just entered, the Aquarius age. I may say ages, different ages, and what it means and how and what was expecting from us in this age according to the ancients. From Dr. Kaba, we went to Professor Small, whom is really into Yoruba sacred science, but who could bring us, let's say, who could bridge the gaps between the ancient Kemet and the modern Yoruba and the way spirituality was conducted, even into the Caribbean, and also the definition about energy and how it was conducted, and a small introduction as well on the similarity between African sacred science, spirituality, and Christianism and Islam beyond the centuries. From Professor Smalls and spirituality and the science beyond, we went with that little introduction to Christianity. We went to Sister Benji. Actually, was even one of the host, if yeah, the host we call it, the host of the show. And from her, we got to learn more about the Black Madonna and how Black Madonna got turned into Maria, the mother of Jesus, or Mariah, the mother of Jesus, and from the Christianity and how the different branch of Christianity, of Christianism, um, where, how could I say it? Oh gosh, I've been speaking so much Lingala today that my English got a little bit
That's
in
lovely.
trouble. And how Christianity, how the Black Madonna got involved into Christianity, and how from the Black the color changed, and how the different branches from Christianism were involved with the Black Madonna, and also a little introduction on what she means spiritually, besides the miracles that were conducted into her name. So from the Black Madonna, we went back to Africa again, which I was one of the hosts, and I introduced the viewers into the Congo spirituality that was also who had a lot of similarities with the Akan spirituality and ancient Kemet, and I just tried to expose the similarities and from different African groups into the way they were behaving, of the way they were conducting their spirituality. So from that area, from that material, then we got through tonight, and to guide us even further, deeper into the science you'll be involved to, like I could have said the palace of the Black family, spirituality, the Trinity, and so on. So we're having the questions that we're gonna We're going to ask you so that you can expose the materials and what you've been through all those years, so that people who are watching us, especially in the Netherlands, also worldwide, can get in tune and to learn more, actually.
Beautiful.
So from that one, may I ask you your first? May I ask you the first question? Oh, excuse me, Professor Kimani. Was my introduction quite understandable?
Yes, yes. I
Thank you very
understand
much.
English a little bit. Yes.
I've been speaking like three languages the whole day, so to get back into English, I had to, you know, I didn't have like a short time to get into English. But okay, then if I'm understandable, that's nice, so that I could ask you the first question. Let's say it's still it's really a real honor to have you. So let's start. We had a conversation, and the questions that came, the first question that came to us, it was like, um, in Africa, the words have meanings, sometimes double meanings, and the sounds and everything. So uh, that science we know, but could you tell us, like, from your work, how did actually languages languages start in Africa?
Well, um, thanks for that question, and thanks for this occasion to have a conversation on these important issues. I'm particularly aware that we have an audience on Facebook, and I want to reach out to those audience to say welcome also. This is an important question about how language originated. And I'm reading this as language as distinct from writing. Am I right?
Right.
Good. Now, we do not know with absolute certainty how language originated. What we do know is that language originated in Africa. The first languages spoken in the world were African languages. And we know this in several ways. One, let us begin with the full recognition that language is inescapably an aspect of humanity. If they're human beings, therefore, there must be language. All human beings speak a language. Most of us, especially Africans, speak two or three at least. There is no African who could speak only one language. It would be unusual. Even where in countries like different parts of the Caribbean and the United States, people often say, I only speak one language and that's English or French or something like that. It's not true. Those are the languages of the oppressors. But the ingenuity of our people has made other languages like Farantongo in Suriname, Papiamento in Curacao and so on, Creole, Creolese, and there are different names for these. So let us remember that language is inescapably an aspect of humanity, and that therefore, because African people are the first people, the first human beings in the world, the first languages belong to African people and were African languages. We also know that that's true because of the work of some scholars. One scholar recently looked at the number of words in languages, and he concluded that because of the way in which language changes from generation to generation and so on, from people to people, that the first language had to be an African language. So there are ways in which we could be very, very certain that the first language was an African language. If we could pursue that further, We could come upon an understanding of this also through the way in which human beings populated the world. The short answer to that is that all other races are mutations from African people. Let me go over this. All other races are mutations or mutations of mutations from African people. And therefore, it is Africans who left Africa and went to other parts of the world to become other races because of mutations that developed in different but specific geographies in particular points in time, so that the Chinese mutated and became Chinese, the Japanese, same thing, the Caucasians, same thing, and so on. So again, these people in a certain fundamental way were Africans before they became anything else. And they were speaking African languages before they became anything else. And fact is, if we know our linguistics well enough, we could see African words in many European languages today, but most of us don't know that those words are African words.
Really?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh,
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, wow. Could you give us an example?
Yes, you've anticipated.
Now we're hungry for hear that.
Well, in one of the essays I wrote, it's called From Middle Nature to Ebonics. I gave, and you could get this from me if Sister Eyedontha doesn't have it. You just ask me to send it to you, and I will do that. In that essay, one of the things I did was to provide the first full etymology of the word ebony. Ebony is a word that came out of an African language. We do not know, exactly which African language it was, but it is a word that was borrowed by the ancient Egyptians. And they wrote it down in their language. Why did they borrow it? Because it is a word for a certain wood, which is strong, black, and beautiful. And that's the meaning of ebony: strong, black, beautiful, durable. And it was a hardwood that's much beloved by the ancient Egyptians and other people around the world. But that's not a tree that grew in ancient Egypt. So they used to import it from another part of Africa. And the first place we see it written is in ancient Egyptian. And let me just mention in passing, that the ancient Egyptian language, the Middle East, is the first written language in the world. We probably come up to that again just now. And you see in ancient Egyptian, H-E-N-Y, H-E-D, and so on. Well, you know, you see the word there. Now that's a word that was taken from ancient Egyptian into Old Hebrew, which is the dialect of ancient Egyptian. And from Hebrew, it went into Greek. From Greek, it went into Latin because the Romans who spoke Latin learned quite a lot from the Greeks. So the word traveled from ancient Egypt to Greece through Hebrew. And when the Romans learned all the things they learned from the Greeks, who had learned quite a lot from the ancient Egyptians, they learned that word also. And we all know that the Romans conquered Western Europe in a historical epoch that's often termed the Pax Romana, the peace of the Romans in Latin. And during that time, this word ebony was transferred from Latin into the languages of Western Europe. So you have Ibn in French, in Portuguese and Spanish. You have Ibn House, and in German and its dialect, Dutch, you know, Netherlands.
Ebon out, yeah.
And you have ebony in English. But here's something. Because in Greek, the initial, there's an H, initial sound. It's a very weak sound. So sometimes it's not heard and it's not written down. Mm-hmm. And the result of that is that there are two spellings of ebony in many of those languages. There's E-B-O-N-Y and there's H-E-B-O-N-Y. That's the English. The older forms of the language tend to have both. So that in Middle French, Old French, Middle English, you'll have it with the H as well as without the H, with the E. But in modern writings and speaking, it begins with the E, or it tends to.
You know that what you're saying is very yeah, it really made an impression on me. I was in December, I was in the National Museum in Cairo, and I saw this beautiful inlaid wood with ivory. Mm-hmm. And it was from Nubia. It was not even from Egypt. It was all 5,000-6,000 years old. And it looked like the, you know, these wooden boxes that they sell like in Spain with different pieces of wood in it, and it's really beautiful. It's supposed to be Arabic. It's like the Andalus kind of things, and I'm like, oh, so this is where they got that from.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was ebony. It was ebony, really. So that you are talking about this is really, again, making me see that the foundation was right there. Very beautiful.
And let us not forget that African people would name themselves and each other from qualities they admired in inanimate objects as well as animals and other people. And so the name of a person in ancient Egypt, male or female, was ebony. You called people that because you're saying, hey, I know you're strong, you're black, you're durable, and you're beautiful.
Oh, wow.
May I ask you, Professor, is that the same similarity with that word in Arabic that that describes sultans or people from of our rank, like Eid bin or bin Eid or Ibn Eid?
Ibn means son. Ibn means son.
Ibn means son.
Yeah, yeah. Ibn means son.
I was thinking it was like a title of the higher rank, like Eid bin Adam and Eid bin.
Yeah, that means Ibn Adam is son of Adam.
Oh.
Yeah, Ibn.
Phonetically, it sounds like Ibn.
Well, you know.
Yeah, I don't think it's the same word.
Yeah. But they could take like certain characteristics out of the word because, you know, in the Arabic world, a son is very important. So it could like take certain things out of it because, you know, words is power.
That's true.
Because you want your son to be strong. You want your son to be beautiful, you know, so that's a really good thing.
I think you're reading too much into even though to load it down with all of those things. I mean, if I'm not doubting that those interpretations and understandings of the word are not there, but it didn't come from the ancient African word ebony. It came from those people's own understanding of sun and how important they felt it was to pass on their lineage, especially through sons, because that's a very, very male-centered society, culture.
Right.
Okay, I have a question, Dr. Kimani. You mentioned that the pyramid texts are the oldest
Right.
ones. Are they the oldest ones?
I didn't mention that, but they're certainly the oldest writings, or some of the oldest writings in the world.
Okay, so there are more writings before the pyramid text.
Yes, but the pyramid text is distinguished because they're the oldest substantial writings. Before that, you had a word here, a couple of words here, and so on. But the pyramid text is a whole treatise, a whole explanation of many things. And you didn't have that certainly in writing before. People used to seek it.
Okay, and how many years are we talking about? Is it apart? So from the first writings to the pyramid text, could you give us some context for the age we're talking about?
Yes, I'm not too good in this chronology, but before, yes, that's beautiful. Yeah. Before the formation of the United Kingdom of the two lands in Egypt, they were forms of writing, but they tended to be what you would see on what's called the oh man, what's the name of the first ruler, the first pharaoh?
Menace.
Yeah, the palette. What
Yeah,
Narmer palette?
Yeah, Narmer or Menace.
Narmer or Menace, right?
Yeah.
They tended to be not very long writing, and it was extremely symbolic. Yes, Sister I. You showing that, and that's the kind of thing that it tended to be, or it would be the label for a jar, and it would say, this jar contains honey, and it's from this person's rulership, and so on. Okay, so that's how it tended to be. But then you see the pyramid texts for 5,000 years ago, and quite a lot of writing. And the sentences are complex and, kind of fully formed.
Yeah, because actually, what I think one of the things that make the pyramid text so makes them stand out is that in the pyramid text, the whole spiritual idea of kemet was voiced, and the whole beginning, that you could say, the foundation of being righteous, that there's a afterlife. These are all things that really were spoken about in this pyramid text. So that's something that you cannot find anywhere else, really.
I'm going to dispute that with you, You ready for this?
Okay, tell me. I get my pen.
Let's take one step backward.
Right.
And understand what writing is.
Yeah.
You remember me making the distinction between language and writing?
Yes.
I said they're different. Of course, there are tremendous similarities. But here's how we should define language, which is, one guy said, a complete articulatory system of arbitrarily symbolic words. In other words, it's sounds that human beings make, and the sounds in each language are related to each other, but they have meaning. Okay, so that's language in a way. Writing is a graphic or physical attempt to capture sound, what people say. So we could say that writing is an attempt to represent spoken language in a graphic or a physical way. Therefore, there was speech before there was writing,
Of course.
because writing is an attempt to represent speech. So logically, there was speech before there was writing of the speech. And if you look at history, you're going to see that in each cultural tradition, people were speaking before they wrote down what they saw. Is there an ancient Egypt? And I'm going to come back to this. But if you go to Europe, all of those European nations, subcontinents of Europe, they have a tradition in which when you read their oldest text, they will tell you this was first spoken and then it was written. Most of us are familiar with the Greeks. And many people say, are you hearing me?
Yes, we're hearing you.
Yeah, but sometimes your line breaks. Do you
Yeah.
hear that too? Sometimes your line breaks.
Let me see what I could do here, because I just...
I can hear you now. Now you're muted. Yeah? You muted yourself. Still muted? Yes. Now
Yes.
You hear me now?
yes,
Yeah.
we hear you.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, what Homer wrote down was what most people who know about that believe were stories that were spoken about around the campfires for many centuries before. And the English have something called Beowulf.
Yes,
It's the
we
same
will.
thing.
Yeah.
These were stories that were told and retold by passed on by word of mouth, and they were later written down. Long before that, African people in Kemet, ancient Egypt, went through the same process. They were the first people to invent writing, and it is clear that some of their older stories were first passed on and discussed from word of mouth. It's the same with the pyramid text. And we know that that's not a very accurate representation of the pyramid text, but I'm going to come back to that in a moment. We know that substantial parts of the pyramid text came about in this way because some of those things were brought with immigrants, if we could call it that, people who migrated from inner Africa into what became Kemet. And it was a journey, and some of the scholars accurately, in my estimation, identify some of the types of terrain through which the people pass because of how they express themselves and the symbols they use to express themselves in the pyramid text. Of course, one of the distinctions of humanity is a capacity to improve, to change for the better. And the pyramid text isn't simply a conglomeration of things that were brought from inner Africa. The people of Kemet added, and they kept on adding, so that after a few thousand years, the pyramid text, as an expression of the most advanced understandings of those philosophical issues, was no longer adequate. And that's when they wrote the coffin text. And then the coffin text became improved upon, and the expression of that is the book of Heru, the book of going up into righteousness, right? The Europeans call it the Egyptian Book of the Dead.
Why?
Book of Coming Forth by Day. They call it Egyptian Book of the Dead because copies were found on dead bodies that were buried. Okay?
That they ate.
Well, some of them, yes, they did.
They did that.
Yeah. And they call it the Book of Coming Forth by Day because they mistranslate the ancient Egyptian words for to go out, to go up, and they. In normal tenses, in normal expression, PRT would mean to go out, to go up, or so on. But this is not a physical going out. This is a spiritual going out. And what are you going out for? Enlightenment. Now, the word HRW in ancient Egyptian usually means day or light or something like that. But if you look at the ritual context of Pretem Heru, it's clear that what they're talking about is the person going up into enlightenment. In other words, going to achieve enlightenment, you know, because the person has to know these things in order to navigate the journey on the world until they come to the great hall of Mati, where they'll be judged. Okay? So it cannot mean the book of going forth by day. You know, it must mean the book of obtaining enlightenment. And even the word for book, ru, you know, the mouth, it originally meant to speak. Okay? So this again warns us that originally what was written down was first spoken, because the word mouth represents what is now written. Originally, it represented only what was spoken. And that's how it became the symbol that stands in for written or chapters. Okay? So that's another clue from the language itself, that first you had speech and then you had writing, which is an attempt to represent speech graphically.
And this right now, I want to ask like 100 questions. You can understand.
Ask them one at a time.
But I have two really important questions, because the first question is, of course, speech was first, and then writing. That's logical. But there is, of course, you're speaking about something, and then you're gonna write it down. But what is very important in Kemetic language is that they also write down a lot of things that you couldn't, that was not, that was abstract. Like, for instance, wisdom, and they had a lot of things that had, I know when you see it in the Medinator, they have I think they have a different kind of side that, you know, this is something spirit, this is something that's abstract. And that's something I wanted to know. And then my other question, we're deviating a little bit, but my other question is, the people of Kemet, I think they had 3 different ways of writing. I think they have like heretic, they had demotic, and they had like the regular Medinator that we all know as hieroglyphs. And then the other real question is, so who was telling us that hieroglyph is a mouth? Who was telling us that, and when did that happen?
Could you repeat the last question?
1 second. Before you answer those questions, make sure that we are talking to people who are still also from the lead level, can understand. So please, could you build it up? Because there are some things that she was saying about 3 different languages. I didn't even know we had 1. So could you please build it up and tell us what the Medinator is, and that you, of course, a teacher of the Medinator. Yes, please.
Yeah, my phone. Let us, Sister Benji, could you ask me your last question, because I didn't get one of the words you used.
Okay. Of course, I know that the person who translated the Medinator was Champollion. So could you please tell us a little more about the process, how he find out what the meaning was of the Medunator, and you know,
Okay.
and it's something. It's so, I have to be honest. Of course, I have books here from Wallace Virtues, like one of the great English translators of the Medunator. But I'm always thinking, is it really true what you're saying?
All right. Let me start with your first question.
All right.
About abstract ideas. Now, some racist Europeans, and that's repetitious, most racist, even when they want to be different. They try to say that African languages cannot express abstract ideas because they believe abstract ideas to be advanced ideas. And they have this.
Could you repeat that again?
Yeah, can you repeat that again, because she was
breaking up.
Breaking up.
Okay. Many Europeans and other people, including Africans, who were influenced by Europeans, believe that African languages cannot express abstract ideas because they believe that abstract ideas are advanced ideas, and Africans were not advanced. We're supposed to be primitive. And that kind of racist nonsense is very clearly exploded by the Medunator that was invented and used by Africans for thousands of years before Europeans achieved what they call civilization by their own estimates. When they were living in caves and drinking blood out of skulls, our people were writing very advanced ideas. That's how they could write and read the plans for the pyramids and temples. That's how what we began this session discussing, the pyramid texts, were written down 5,000 and more years ago. No other culture, no other people could boast a tradition in writing and in high culture, advanced culture, civilization in a word, that is as long as ours, African people. So that's the first thing to understand. And many of, if we're going to be very specific, many of the abstract ideas in the writing of the ancient Egyptian language, we call Medunator, was expressed or indicated by a papyrus roll tied with a string. So anytime you see that sign, it tells you this is an abstract. But we shouldn't believe that that's unerringly an abstract, or that it's the only way of indicating an abstract thought. A lot of African languages, unless you understand or you pay attention to the context, you may well be going wrong. And what I mentioned to you just now on the interpretation of Khepera as the book of obtaining enlightenment is one of them. Europeans, because they have a very mechanistic interpretation of the ancient Egyptian written language, often end up believing illogical things, nonsensical things, and making stupid interpretations of what they're saying. A big part of that is something that we need to understand. Europeans, because of their racism, have been refusing to recognize that the ancient Egyptians were Africans and that their language is an African language. And if you want to understand any language, you have to understand it as articulating a culture to which it belongs. But they are attempting to say that the ancient Egyptians were not African, and they go to ancient Egyptian language with a European cultural perspective. And that's why they cannot make certain kinds of, shall we say, refined and more accurate understanding of what they are reading. And Pret M. Heru is a very good example because they read the book or the chapter of going forth or going out or going up. The word means all of those by day. It can't mean that. It must mean that PRT here, to go out, to go up, means to obtain in that specific instance, context. And Heru HRW followed by the sign for day cannot mean literally day. It has to mean enlightenment, the light that you get from the day. But in this case, that light is not the light you get from day. It's the light you get from knowledge and understanding. So Pret M. Heru cannot mean the book of going forth by day. It can only mean the book of obtaining enlightenment.
Wow.
You see the same phenomenon when Europeans read that the word eat niter, eat meaning father, niter meaning God,
Right.
father of the God. The God in this case is the Pharaoh. And they interpreted eat meaning father very literally as a genetic ancestor, the immediate genetic ancestor. That's the very limited European interpretation and experience of father and fatherhood. In this case of ancient Egypt, father means somebody who is performing the roles or one of the roles of the father. What that means very literally is that the person is the chief advisor to the Pharaoh. And your father is usually your chief advisor. That's one of the roles of fatherhood when fatherhood, the family is working properly. So they kept saying that this person is wrong and the ancient Egyptians don't know their own language. That's how arrogant and stupid some Europeans could become, you know. And therefore you have a situation like Tutankhamun and what's the guy who succeeded him?
Horemheb.
Sorry?
Is it Horemheb?
No, not Horemheb. Before
Yeah,
Horemheb. Huh?
I think what's
It is I.
right. I.
You know, I was the father of Tutankhamun, meaning his chief advisor. But then he became his son because he inherited. A son inherits from his father. And in ancient Egypt, you know whose son or chief son, meaning the elder son, because that's the person who performs the opening of the mouth ritual at the burial of the father. It was I who performed the opening of the mouth ritual. So he inherited. And we know that also because he became Pharaoh. He inherited the political power and position of his father. But that was not a literal, a genetic father.
The biological father.
It was not.
No.
And this corresponds to a rule in ancient Egyptian and all African society. You do not have to be a biological father or mother or brother or sister in order to be a father or mother or brother or sister.
Yeah, we say it all the time. Hey, sister, hey, brother, how you do that? Yeah, we do it all the time.
Yes, and in African languages, you do not have stepsister, half brother, widowers, and so on. You have human beings who your brothers, your sisters, your father, and father in African languages could mean grandfather for any number of generations removed also. Okay, so we're dealing with a very human society. you know. And in order to interpret the writings of African people, you have to know and locate those writings in African culture. That's the only way in which they're going to make sense. So when Europeans saw that I was the father of Tutankhamun, then he became his son. There's what foolishness is this? How could this guy be his father? Then he became his son. This is nonsense because they are so arrogant that they try to force the ancient Egyptian language into the limited and often limiting and perhaps barbaric European cultural norms. And there are many other examples of this. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Dr. Kimani.
Let me answer the second question.
Yes, please.
This is about the three ways of writing the ancient Egyptian language. Let us remember this, that writing is a system of graphic representation of sounds, language. So you could have 3 ways, 4 ways, 5 different ways of representing the same set of sounds. And to make a long story short, in ancient Egypt, because of the tremendous span of time we're talking about, some developments took place where people tried to do like a kind of shorthand. So some of the metal netting, and that became one form. This is a way of saying it, right? But that's what happened. Throughout. Are you hearing me? You hear me now?
Yes, now now it's clear.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So throughout ancient Egypt, they tended to retain the classical form of the language, what we call Middle Neck. So the scholars were always able.
I think we have to come over to England and listen to you talk, because there's no one in between, and then we can hear anything. But still, we're gonna try. Maybe it's a good idea if we, who are not talking, if we turn off our camera, because then the streamers maybe, no, it doesn't matter?
No, it doesn't really matter because it's Professor Kimani, the connection.
And yeah.
All right,
they will make the best out of it. Yeah, it's on his end. After his when Dr. Kimani finished this question, we're going to I can do it now, of course. Some feedback from Facebook until you're done, Dr. Kimani. Are you done? Because your mic is still out.
To reconnect the mic.
Yes.
You're hearing me now?
Yes, we hear you now.
All right. I was on the point of the way of representing language as a physical thing. I think I did that, and I have Champollion to talk about now. And basically, he and others were trying to decode the Middle Nature for a long time, and Champollion got a breakthrough when they found what is called the Rosetta Stone, in which the same decree, the same things were written in ancient Egyptian, Middle Nature, in Greek, and in another language. I guess it's Arabic.
No, it's Demotic.
Demotic, yes.
Demotic, yeah.
Right? So Champollion was able, with his linguistic training, to realize what those some of those words and letters represented. And he used that as a base for further comparisons and understanding the Medu Neter through comparisons with terms and words that he knew. Yeah.
Right. I just wanted to say that demotic is also, that's why I asked the question about how it comes that the people in Kemet had like 3 different ways of writing. And then you had, of course, the Medu Neter, which was for official and for the temples. And then demotic and the other one, which is called hieratic, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. Yes.
That is like, if you really want to write very quick, and for the officials, if they're doing, for instance, like tax and organizing things, they use the hieratic and the demotic. So actually, it's something that's really very insulting every time I think about it. Is that this man Champollion is a French guy. He went to Kemet, to Egypt with Napoleon. And he has this big, beautiful statue in France, and he's standing with his feet on the head of one of the pharaohs in Paris. So that's saying something about the amount of, I don't know how I should call that, barbarism, I think. Yeah.
Well, we must also understand 2 things. One is that what Champollion did was an approximation of meaning, because he assumed that the language represented a European culture. He, like most of the other Europeans, could not understand the finer points, or sometimes understand at all, what the ancient Egyptians were speaking about. It's as though you understand the words of somebody, but you can't understand the meaning or the full meaning, behind it. Brother Dankerlui, you mentioned before double and triple entendre, right? Double and triple meanings. Yeah. African people have long been experts at that. You say one thing, but if you do not pay attention to the context in which the person is speaking, the meaning you get may be vastly different, sometimes even comical, from that which is intended. And when Europeans thought that they understood the Medu Neter because they could translate the words individually, really they weren't making much sense. They were like children, as the ancient Egyptians once called them, because they had the very minimal, primitive, basic interpretation of the writing. So it's important for us to understand that. And especially when we're talking about abstract concepts, you can't really have a basic and minimal understanding of the language and expect to get that right.
Thank you very much. We have to go. It's already 9 o'clock, I can see. A few comments from the people who are watching. Well, Amal Yusuf, hi. We know what he says, Uhuru.
Uhuru Sasa.
Uhuru, yeah. And Terence Blackman says, excellent conversation. So it's complimenting us. Kojo Kumbala is listening. Hi, Kojo. We're still waiting for your invitation. You also know brother Kojo Kimani Nehushi. I know you know him, Dr. Kimani.
Greetings, brother Kojo.
Yeah, Damien Trent is saying brutalized barbarism. I don't know what comment was on that because we have a delay you have to understand we have a delay. So,
Which part?
Damien, who?
Section.
but I don't know. So, but this is the first section is done. So the first section was about what we spoke of was about the
Which the
how
stone.
did and where did African language um, came how do you say on how do you say it?
Existence.
Did it
How can like
started? Yeah, and what is Medionetter and what kinds of so we found out that there are a few different ways to uh, from the writings because we only know about the temples, the Medionetter in the
visualize the
temples.
to visualize the speaking. Mhm.
But there are three different ones, and I was like, okay, I just didn't know that I was just about to understand. I don't even understand the first one, so but that shows how very advanced our ancestors were at that time. So I know this is why you mentioned it, and we're talking. We have to understand that we're talking about different areas on the before
Yeah,
Christ.
yeah.
So that's
Absolutely.
really important to say that the
Absolutely.
Medionetter, when it started, was when you say King Marmon. King Marmon
Narma.
was,
Norma.
huh?
Norma.
Narma.
Norma.
Narmer. I'm sorry, I would say Marmer.
Yeah. Norma.
Narma.
Marmer, and then,
NRMR. Striking catfish.
yeah,
Or the
that's
aggressive
Marmer is
survivor.
that's pre-dynastic kemet.
Yeah.
And that the pyramid texts were around 2500. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that the Rosetta Stone. So now I understand why people are talking about the Rosetta Stone. The Rosetta Stone were almost before Christ, so
Yes.
that's a whole heap of history leap, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay,
It's
so
in the British Museum. Anybody just passing through London, just go and check it out. And it's in the British Museum. So
the
if
Rosetta
anytime
Stone,
you're
yeah.
there, yeah, you can go and see it.
let
You
Okay,
me
know,
so
actually, pardon me, when I did the recap, I forgot to mention
Paulo
the
Bida,
Paul
yeah,
who was on the show last week,
yeah,
and he's the one actually who put the lineage, the document I showing, the African
the
Timeline.
lineage
lineage,
timeline, yeah.
timeline lineage. He's the one who put it all together. So especially for those who watching, and every time that I is showing like, what's this? This is the timeline lineage, and you can get it through House of Khepera. Was made by Brother Paul, who was on the show last week, and who alerted us into some dates, important
Yeah,
dates
to
in
give us an
that
overview.
history.
Exactly. Thank you for that, Don Carleon. We're going to the second part, and it's 9 o'clock. It's 10 minutes past 9. We'll see how far we go, and that's the African language and culture. I'm going to talk about that now, because culture and language are very close together, and we would like to know what was it we like to know. What was it that we like to know?
Now,
Sister Benji.
what is culture? What is culture, of course?
Of course, what is culture?
And we have, uh, you know, we have a lot of different culture. You have written a marvelous book. I haven't read it, but my sister
Yes,
here,
libation.
yeah, about libation, which is, of course, part of our culture. I mean, you can see it everywhere. You can even see like gangsters saying they're what they do. This is one for my homie. Could you tell us some more about
Libation.
libation?
Oh yeah, pouring the liquor on the floor.
Pouring the liquor on the floor. Yes, please. Could you tell us some more about where does it come from? What's the origin? And where do we see it? And could you also tell us what do you think is, because we all have different forms. If you go around the diaspora, you're going to see different forms. What is for you the most pure form?
Let me begin this session by acknowledging some of the people who sent in communications to us. And here I want to acknowledge Professor Terence Blackman and teacher Damien Trent, I think it is, who said hello. Um, Thanks for listening, and I hope that we'll be able to field your questions if you did ask any. I think you asked Sister Benji, what is culture? And let's say that culture is a distinct way of life of a people. But that group of people who practice the culture also have more advanced ways of existing. It's not just a distinctive way of life, full stop. The distinctiveness in that way of life represents the ways in which people do two things. One is identify what to them are. You hear me?
You have to repeat that last part again. Because that one, we didn't hear that one so good.
Right. A culture is not just a way of life. It's a way of life that represents important principles or values to the people. So it doesn't matter where in the world you go, African culture represents certain values. For example, Africans always know that there is a supreme being. Europeans and many people call that supreme being God. And our culture understands that God is a representation of power, and that we live in an environment, we're part of an environment, and that everything in that environment is related to everything else, never mind how far and vague that relationship might appear to be to us. And that we Africans must be aware of those relationships and honor them. That's what we call spirituality. And spiritualism is the way or ways in which we acknowledge and represent those connections. Our ancestors also knew always that because of the interconnection of everything in the universe, to interfere with any one section is ultimately to threaten and interfere with the entire structure. That's why today, some cannibals who came among us a couple hundred years ago are shouting about environmentalism. It's a recent discovery of theirs. After they've butchered the planet and have landed us into the situation where today everyone is threatened by environmental degradation, they've suddenly discovered what African people were practicing for thousands of years. And I'm not saying this for the sake of saying it. The evidence is right in front of us. Libation is one aspect of that evidence, and I'm going to come to that just now. But let me just say that when the Rasta people say everything is everything, that's exactly what we're saying. We're all interconnected. When African people are setting out on a journey to go and hunt, they pour libation and they make the solemnest pledge not to take anything in excess of what is needed. That's environmentalism in action. In every African community that remains African, there are ways in which environmentalism is proclaimed and lived every day in the life of those people. My brother, Don Karleon, you know the word kina?
Kina?
Kina, yeah, from Kikongo.
Yeah.
And it means something you do not do. You don't interact with it. Now that's part of environmentalism.
Context, yeah.
Because it means that if your kina is the deer, you do not kill the deer, you do not eat it. It means that the deer is a protected and preserved species in your area, your village and its environs. The next area, the kina might be the cow, and so on. Somebody else's kina is a tree, and there were always sacred groves. So what happened? The result of this is that a system of species protection and preservation spreads itself across the land without a single fence or a gun. That's how environmentalism was lived every day in Africa. In my country, Guyana, people say kina, but many of the people don't know that that's a representation of African science. And that science was so advanced that even the babies started to learn it before they were walking.
This is really, it's not strange, of course, but I know that in Suriname, with the Maroons, they have Kina Day. Kina Day, that's day that they're not supposed to work. And that's, so the origin of the word is also with us. So that's very, yeah, that's amazing, I should say, yeah.
Let's go deeper. Among the Maroons, Kina means abstinence. I'm not hearing you.
Yeah, I said exactly.
It means abstinence.
That's the day that they don't go
anything. They abstain from work.
Abstain from work, yeah.
But that's deep in African tradition. In ancient Kemet, abstinence was part of the festival that has become known as the carnival throughout the world. And the first place we see carnival is in Kemet. You abstained from doing certain things at certain times. In ancient Egyptian, the word for abstinence, that means you do not partake in, you don't eat or kill an animal, is BWT. Budge and other Europeans translate that as something negative, bad. It doesn't mean that. It means abstinence. Okay? And before you perform certain rituals, for example, if you have a very important libation coming up, part of your preparation is physical and spiritual cleanliness. And there are certain things you abstain from doing in order to achieve that state of being where you clean physically and especially spiritually in order to practice to do that libation. That's how organized and how deep our people were.
Very clear. Very clear. I'm sorry. No, you were saying?
Mr. Benji?
No.
No, I was saying something.
Me?
I thought somebody said something. Yeah.
No, I'm speaking right now.
I'm speaking exactly. I was like,
wow,
make total sense. So that's the what we call trefu, right? We call it
trefu. Yeah, trefu. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think there's also another, because trefu is when you eat something, but the absence should be a different word. But I don't know that word.
Well, it's like the same, because if you have a trefu for something, you cannot eat it.
You cannot eat it.
So
yeah.
that is your, you have to abstain from eating that. Really.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah. I would like to do get some more feedback. That's I think this is your friend Damien Trent.
Oh yes.
Yes, Damien Trent he says a lot of things. He's really excited, and we are also excited. He's saying, great to hear and see you speak, Dr. Nehushi. Blessings. He also pour out a little liquor from Tupac. I think that's the sound. You taught him about it. He said, I learned that from Dr. Nehushi. He's also calling some more friends to join our conversation. And he also said it was a reference to the European standing on the head of the ancient Egyptian statue, as Benji mentioned. The term was used by Dr. Nehushi, and I use it quite often. I always show the video to students when he speaks on enslavement. Um, yeah, that's it. What about that's Damien Trent. Thank you for your question, Damien. Nice to have you. Ashe Sioma, hi. She said, Queen Benji, Margaret, beautiful black queen. You look stunning. I don't know if I said that before. You look stunning. Thank you for joining us. Well, Kojo, I also mentioned Kojo, and Jerry Sandam, that's my cousin. He said good luck. Thank you for that. Let's see who else. I think that's it for now. That's it for now. So what are the other questions?
Well, you wanted to know about the origins of libation.
Mm-hmm.
And Sister Benji asked me about different forms.
Mm-hmm.
And she used a formulation that I'm interested in, the most pure form. um, Let me just say this. The origins of libation, as far as we know, are way back in inner Africa. And I doubt whether we could put um, our hand on an exact origin. And the evidence is right before us that it comes from a very, very, very long time in Africa. And here's my reason. In every African community you go, there is libation in one form or the other. And what that means is that it's such an old custom that it must have been with us for so long that maybe it's from near to the beginnings of our people. Look at it another way.
Yeah, you'll have to repeat that because we haven't heard the part you were talking about. But
Yeah, I'm saying it's so old.
yes,
It's in every African community you could think about.
yes.
What that means is that it must have been with our people from the beginning of us or from very near to the beginning. That's why it's in among everybody. Here's the other thing. No, it's not possible. It's not logical for all those different African communities, thousands of communities, to have invented the same thing independently of each other. It's you know, I mean, it's beyond logical.
Real.
So all of this points towards not only the common origin of our people, but the very ancient nature of the ritual of libation.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You know, the evidence is there. There's no way in which we could, you know, throw that through the window.
Mm-hmm.
And this tells us something also about Kemet, ancient Egypt. It didn't appear out of nowhere on its own volition and by itself. Kemet, ancient Egypt, is a specific expression of African culture. It may be the most known and admired flower from the African tree, but it is not the only bloom from our people. And it is important in our attempts to understand Kemet that we do not misrepresent it as either the beginning of Africa or the only expression of our people. Libation helps to tell us that. So that's the origin. You will find that there are different forms of libation. African people in the Pacific Ocean, they've developed a different form of libation, but it's recognizable instantly as libation. The fact that your people may pour libation a bit differently from somebody else does not invalidate either of the two people. There are different ways of being African, and all of them are as genuine as the other one. You know, some of us wear locks, and some of us who wear locks are rastas. Others are rascals because they're sheltering evil under the locks. Some of us are bald heads, and we are righteous people. We're very strong in our African commitment. Some of us take the baby on a Monday to see the world outdooring. Some of us may do it on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. Does that make us different? No. There are different ways of being African. And in our attempts to understand ourselves, we have to understand that variation does not mean different and discord. Even when we have genuine differences, those genuine differences do not outweigh the tremendous similarities that our people's lives represent. And it's important for us, as we contemplate ourselves, to understand that all African people represent in our culture, in our rituals, varying ways, sometimes different ways of doing the same things, of honoring the same principles. So when you go to Kwanzaa, for example, and people talk about unity, people talk about the importance of doing things for ourselves. People talk about collective work and responsibility. We talk about all of these things, but in our different communities, there are different ways of emphasizing and living those principles. That does not make any one of us either more African or less African than the other. What makes us more African or less African is our commitment to being ourselves, to being African, to representing our ancestors and their wishes, to carrying forth the work, the dedication, and the achievements of our ancestors. So there is no pure form of libation, Sister Benji. They're just different forms. But I think I know what you mean.
Yeah, because Sister I and I, we were talking about this, about the questions, and it's also that sometimes we get diverted from being in, or people are trying to scare you. Oh, no, you cannot do it like that. Or, you know, it's about, can you get closer to the source of doing it in the right way, you know? And that's why we was asking this question basically, because there's a lot of things connected to our culture that are, like, for instance, I'm gonna do like a personal thing. My mother, she totally hates boys with earrings. Bigado, wherever yeslinga, I'm talking Suriname. But if you're looking at Tutankhamun, he has the earrings. You know what I mean? And other brother from our collective, we were talking about, he just got a niece the other day, and in the olden times in Suriname, when a baby was born, they used to cut the hair from the baby, because it's like, you come from another life, you're gonna start a new life, and we cut your hair. But these things have changed, okay? So if you're not doing that, you're not gonna do right for your baby, you know, things like that. So we're trying to cut the grass that is in front of us to see like the more pure African source. You know, that is sometimes it is confusing us. That's why we ask this question.
Yes.
I understand that. And let me just say this, that the opposite is also true. There's no pure or most pure form, but there's also a pure form. Why am I saying this partly contradictory thing? A ritual is a specific way of doing something. A ritual is thought, word, and deed. And people want to maintain that ritual as close as possible to how they inherited it. That's part of the sacredness of the ritual. But it is also true that change takes place in all culture, and change results from difference in environment very often. And our people, Africans in the diaspora, have been challenged to change.
But we still can hear you, Professor. It's scratching, but we still can hear you. But now your mic is muted, so you need to unmute it again. Still unmute, still mute, still muted.
Was frozen.
Still muted. Yeah, your mic is still muted, Professor. Yeah.
Yeah, it's no longer muted. Anytime it happens, just give me one moment. I found out what to do.
No problem.
Yeah, because of the Ma'afa, because of the great destruction and the evil of enslavement, where Europeans tried to prevent us from being ourselves, from living our culture on the pain of death, our people had to make adjustments. And those adjustments are variations in our culture. So in many parts of the diaspora, we would see somebody pour a few drops of liquor on the floor, and they would say, for those who are not here, or something like that. And it's over in half a minute. Why is that so? Well, libation is part, and after a while it became on its own a relatively long ritual. But imagine that on the plantations where our people were executed for living Africa, you could not practice that ritual. So what our people did is still practice it, but in a very abbreviated form. Instead of doing all the salutations and so on, they cut it down to the most symbolic part of it, the pouring out of the liquor. That's why Tupac sang, pour out a little liquor, because that's all he knows. He didn't even know the name of the ritual, libation. It's not his fault. That's why Nas says, just a moment of silence. What he's saying is that this is a powerful moment. You cannot defile this moment, because this is a powerful ceremony we're about to have. And all of them, or both of them, make it clear that this ritual is for people who are here but not here. They're here spiritually, but physically, our homies are in the jails. Somebody is in another world because that person has departed. That's how we know that they're talking about libation, because libation unites all Africans, Africans past, African present, and Africans yet to come, from the spirit world as well as from this world. Those who are next to us physically, as well as those who are not next to us physically. We are all here spiritually. That's how powerful libation is. It unites us across generations, across place and places and time and times.
I can remember, like, for example, my grandmother doing the ceremonial just like prior to a long trip, so she could be blessed on a trip. But it came to my understanding that this was actually, it's alchemy, it's like the law of attraction, because To my understanding, you're having the water element, you're having the earth element, which or thought being the wind element, and the action of doing something being the fire element. Bringing those four elements together, you're creating a magical happening, putting power to the things that you're about to do. You see, because it was not only to honor those who have passed away, but it's also to ask blessings to the actions you're about to take from
Yeah,
your ancestors to guides you and to support you to the thing you're intending to do.
that's why you summon all of those spirits, including the spirits of the Almighty, of the lesser divinities, of our ancestors, of those who are with us in this realm of existence, of those who are yet to come, of living things, animals and plants, the environment. All of those forces are summoned so that the moment is charged, is powerful, and we could achieve or be enabled to achieve what it is we're setting out to achieve, and which is why, or what we're asking, or some of the things we're asking at that moment. So that is what you're talking about, is the libation statement, where a formal statement is made that says, what is this moment for? What is this libation for? Europeans call that prayers, right? And at first, African people didn't pay much attention to the words. They paid a lot of attention to giving a gift to the divinity, because originally libation belonged to a complex of rituals, which was expressed as a single ritual. And parts of that ritual were A, the giving of a gift, that is a sacrifice. You might call it first fruits in some parts.
Sacrifice. Is that the same like in Christianity? This is my blood, drink it, and this is my
We're
flesh.
coming to that.
Okay.
We're coming to that. It was also offering incense, censing. It was also, on some occasions, blood offerings, which is,
Highest level of sacrifice.
right? And African people, as far as I know, didn't used to offer blood in that way, right? Drinking it and, that kind of thing. I mean, Europeans accuse us of being cannibals, and every Sunday they're drinking the blood of Christ and eating his flesh. And we're supposed to be cannibals. I mean, just something in passing, for you to notice, okay? Now, as time went on, more and more were added to that ancient combined ritual. And they began to separate into different rituals that we know today as censing, where you offer incense, the words that you spoke to salute the divinity became extended. When you look at the praise tradition throughout Africa, you could go way back to ancient Egypt. There's a tradition of praising, blaming, and ridiculing. People call it praise songs, right? That's all over Africa. That came out of that whole libation, that complex ceremony or ritual that contained all of these. And the spoken part, after a while, became so developed that it had its own existence. And that's what the libation statement became. And among Europeans, it became prayers, where you beseech the divinity for certain things. And you find this, the evidence is there among Europeans. When they sing or they make a prayer, what do they say at the end? Amen. That's the ancient Egyptian unseen divinity, Amun, that they're actually praying to. But they don't know. In their ignorance and their lying, where they try to say that they come upon these things on their own, they didn't get it from African people. It's our stuff. they're recycling in an incomplete way. Okay? So I don't want to go too much into that. So let me stop here on libation. I don't want to exhaust more of your time on the same thing. So please guide us into the next question, or if you want something else on libation, another question on libation.
Oh.
Well, let me check Sister Ian here what she said, because we got like we got some time left.
20 minutes left. And
Yeah.
we're okay. I still want to go back to, before I forget, you mentioned the book coming forth by day, but there are different versions. And Sister Benji said you need the one from Anu, but I can't seem to find it because I want to share it in this session so everybody can find it. So
one moment. One moment. One moment.
Okay, dat kan gewoon.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can have some feedback. Do you have some feedback, Don Karleon, from your viewers? Sister Benji, do you have some feedback from your viewers which you want to share now? Is the time?
No.
You don't have any?
Only likes, but not
looking,
specific question.
No more questions. I think it's really clear. I don't have any questions here. Ashe Sioma says, Ashe, we give thanks for the libations. That's what she say. Oh, Aquarica say, Amun and Amunet.
Yes.
It's said in the modern times, we forget to acknowledge both divine powers. Amun and Amunet. Oh, that's what she just said. It's Amun and Amunet. Is that?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Aquarica. That's really we can ask that question. It's Amun and Amunet. We have the and in ancient it was always the feminine and the masculine. And she's right. It's more the masculine
action.
So yeah. I'm sorry about that. Damien Trent also said, my mother's beliefs were reaffirmed by this text. She felt great pride in learning about the origins and foundations of the libations that she practices. The information is so powerful that it needs a higher level of frequency to be transmitted. I think it's just because of the disturbance we have with the with the line. So he says it's so high frequency.
It's not enough. Even 5G can hold it. Actually, because we're operating even higher than 5G. Bro.
Exactly, we're even higher than 5G. Oh, that's the book of the dead.
Yeah.
I say what is.
But this is the one from Ani.
This is the one from Ani.
Yeah, this is the one from Ani. And what I really like about the book is that it has the medunator on top. Wait.
Mm-hmm. Because I see Dr. Kimani also has a copy of.
You can see it has the medunator on top, and then they translate it at the bottom. But you know, just like Brother Kimani said, there are a lot of things that they really don't know.
Yeah.
All right. I was listening to you, but let me just stick with this book because it's becoming important for us. That's Budget's version you have, Sister Benji? Whose version is, please unmute your mic.
Oh, your mic is muted.
Yeah, excuse me. What is Budge?
Right. So that's a version of this one. They're both the same.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And let me say that the reason why people emphasize the papyrus of Ani is because that's the most complete version of the text. But to get a very complete one, they would add in things that they found in other variants that are not, you hear me?
Could you please?
We can you.
Please repeat the last two sentences, please.
I'm saying that in order to get the most complete version, they would normally add in pieces of the whole thing that are not contained in the version of Annie, but were found in other burials. But Annie is the most important version because it's the most complete. So they would say the papyrus of Annie, because that's where they found the most complete version. And Wallace Budge published a translation in over 100 years ago. But Wallace Budge's transliterations are often incorrect. So while his translation is often good, his transliteration, how he represents the Middle Nature in the universal script, phonetic script, is suspect in many ways, right? So be very careful about that. But this is by far one of the more educated texts because of the very many notes he has. It's not that he is always correct, but he has a lot of notes that helps you to understand the text itself. Now, another Englishman called Faulkner, R.O. Faulkner, who also did a dictionary of Middle Egyptian. He did a translation of the text, which is this one. And it's often used as a basis by other people for their translations. So, for example, James Allen did an introduction to Faulkner. This is another publication of Faulkner. This is very attractive, as you can see, visually very attractive. Here is John Taylor's translation. This came out while I lived in England, and this is about not too long ago. Yeah, 2010, right? And there's a whole story behind this book because they had an exhibition that lasted many months in order to welcome the publication of this book. And in that exhibition, they mentioned Greece. There is not a single mention of Africa. So two of us went to them and remonstrated with them. And when we told them that this is an African language and that Egypt is an African song, they were resisting. And when I pointed out to them that Egypt had to have been an African country because of the language and how the ancient Egyptians called Inner Africa Ta'yaku, which means the land of our ancestral spirits. They called Inner Africa also words that translate as placenta land, the place where our placentas are buried. They called it, yes, they called it also Tanite, which means the Holy Land, God's land. So they're telling you that's where they come from. And when you look at the ancient Egyptian words for left, right, up, down, north, south, you could see that they oriented themselves by looking at Inner Africa because that was a sacred place for them and a psychological reference point. Okay? Now you've got another version of the so-called Book of the Dead, right?
I just want to jump in because I hear you say some things about people burying their, what do you say again? Their placenta, right?
And well, the navel spring and after birth.
Yeah, we do that in Suriname as well.
Yeah, it
And
doesn't surprise.
and because I was talking to Sister I just the other day about this, that certain words that we use in Suriname that represents a spirit. Like for instance, we're talking about if you're talking about people that pass away, you call them your ka, and then we know that ka in kemet means spirit, you know, and you have words like kabra, you know, that means also the ancestors, the first people that came from Africa that came to Suriname. They're the people that pass away, but they're like the ancestors who came from Africa and things like that. So these are all words that I can that we pinpoint in Suriname language, and this is also a question because there's something that's really it's something that's always been a kind of a puzzle when I listen to people that talking coming from Guyana and people that coming from Suriname and people coming from Jamaica, because the people that come from Jamaica and the people in Suriname say uno. And I don't know, and I'm not sure, it could be something that I didn't hear from people from Guyana, but I hear people from Jamaica say it all the time. We say uno too. And things like nyam, which come from the Mandingo and the Wolof in the Gambia and Senegal. So do you think there's a reason why, is it a part of Guyanese patois? Should I say it like that?
Well, yes and no, but let me go with ka first.
Yes,
Do
please.
you, do you in Suriname say ka or do you say kra? K-R-A or K-A?
We say kra, and but when we're talking about the people the people that have passed away, we call them ka. And you
Yeah.
say the kaba, the kabra,
Mm.
you know, that is the elderly. And so this is
All
things
right.
that, you know.
All right. In ancient Egyptian, everybody and every created thing has a ka.
That's a ka.
It's something that comes from God, from the creator.
Mm.
Now, everybody also has a ba, which is individualistic. So your ka is really something that you share, what makes you part of a collective. Your ba is individual. Now, the people who live today in Ghana and all over Africa, they have connections, of course, with the ancient Egyptians. Many of them migrated from the Nile Valley after the implosion of the ancient Egyptian state. But that's not the only way those connections are there. Those connections are there because the ancient Egyptians were Africans, and African people migrated from other parts of Africa into ancient Egypt, out, and they were always exchanging ideas. So we should not be surprised that you're going to find that many ideas and even words are identical. And this is important because I've seen where some people who've been confused by the European mecha we call the Bible, they read certain parts of the Bible and they see certain rituals that they recognize as theirs. And they conclude that, oh, we're Hebrews because look, it's here in the Bible. Now, that's silly. And it shows our confusion. It's like saying that, the great grandparents have really been descended from their grandchildren. It's as confusing as that. Because what we see in Africa is a representation of very.
Yes, professors. Yeah.
Okay, if you stop hearing me, let me know.
No problem.
What you see in Africa is a representation of ancient Africa long before the Hebrews.
Yes. Feel
Sometimes it's even before or contemporaneous with Kemet, ancient Egypt. And to say that you're Hebrews is really to claim a washed out misrepresentation of your real ancient lineage. And it's important that we understand that.
This is a really, really matter. This is a really, really, really concern, especially now in the community with everyone trying to reach at his own identity, you know, it's really important.
Yeah, we have to be correct. So when we say Ka or Kra, Kra is the Twi name for it, okay? From that you find among the people who speak Twi in Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire.
Yeah.
Right? It's really the same word, okay? It's really the same word, and it means the same thing. One version of Ka could also mean high or big or tall. So, you know, the hieroglyph with
the hands, yeah.
So, so that takes care of Ka and Kra. Ka, Ba, Ra, which is what Khepera means. Yes. It means the Ka of the Ba. No, the Ba of the Ka is Ra. Right? It means that the manifestation, the representation, the individual representation of the essence of humanity, spirit, is really Ra. Ra is the representation of spirit.
This sounds like Kabbalah to me.
Kabbalah? Yeah.
Kabbalah. This is Kabbalah.
Kabbalah. You see, this is the beauty as well as the difficulty in language. Because language changes.
Yes.
You know? And you pronounce words a little bit differently. And sometimes what you think you know is not what you know.
It's not exactly.
Yes, it changes. But you could go, there's a religion that has the Kaaba.
Yeah.
What is the Kaaba?
Yeah.
It's a black cube.
It's a black stone. Yeah.
And it was
meteorites.
Yeah, it was sacred even before the time of the Prophet Muhammad.
Way before. Yeah.
Right?
Before,
I mean, we have these ways of understanding these things. You know, keep remembering that our people are the most ancient people.
Right.
And many of what we see in other cultures are representations and sometimes misrepresentations of our ancestors' creation.
Brother, I know we still have some 3 minutes, so it must be like 7 minutes because my laptop is a little bit ahead. So I think we have less
7 minutes.
7 minutes. I would really like to suggest we do another session. I would like to.
Great.
No problem.
Yes. Okay. Yay! He said no problem. Next week, we're going to do that next week, Brother Kimani, or you want to wait?
I can't say immediately. I have to check.
Okay. So we come back to that. Great. I would like to, we're going to wrap it up, but what I want to do is say hi to Brother Russ Irie from Suriname. Hi, thank you for watching. And I would like to say, Aquarica mentioned, and I want to close with that because she mentioned that we always acknowledge the male deity or the male energy and never or almost not the female energy. And she said it's Amun and Amunet, and it's part of the 8 primordial forces, Ankh, Amun, Amune, Nut and Nut Nun, and Kiku, Hiku and Hikut. I don't know. What do you want to say about?
I mean, that's a conversation that we need to have, right? You could leave it for another time if you want to, but it's a very important conversation. I just wanted to say, Unu, and wanted to respond to Sister Benji's question, is the Igbo first person plural, which means we, okay? And the word is used in Barbados slightly different. They say wuno, right?
Ah,
So that tells you about some of the people who were enslaved in Jamaica, Barbados, and in Suriname, that they came from Ibu land. Okay? Nyam means to eat,
yeah.
and you find that it's a very ancient word. You find it along the coast of West Africa, but in places that speak Zulu and sister languages, it's Nyama, and Nyama means meat.
Yeah.
Okay, but I know we.
And Nyama means beast. Nyama means beast. Inyama is something to eat. Nyama is beast. Also
Right.
a spirit.
So,
Wow.
okay, so that brings us to the end. Thank you for that. Thank you for answering all the questions we had. I think we did it all.
No, no, no. We didn't
Oh,
go
we
into
didn't?
the history
No,
because
but I mean, the
yeah,
aim was to do the first and the third
yeah,
part, and that would be like a bonus. So we're gonna go into the history and go into the male and female energy, which was mentioned
Erika.
by Aquarica. That was a very good one, and I'm really, really, really curious of your thoughts and your how do you say it, readings and your information about that. I'd like to thank everybody for watching and everybody for joining. Thank you for your question and thank you for your time. You can, Dr. Kimaninehusi, can people buy your book if they want to know more about the libation? Or is it because of the corona difficult?
If they're in North America, if they're in United States.
Of course, if you're in Europe.
But I'm making arrangements
Okay.
arrangements to get it available in Netherlands.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Yes.
Thank you. Well, you know where you can follow King Don Karleon and his music and all the other stuff that he's doing. You know where you can follow Benji, Sister Benji Margaret on Facebook. And if you want to book her tour, you know where to find her. Thank you very much. Oh yeah. Also, Dr. Kimane also you also do some other sessions, right? You do a lot of sessions also in for Guyana and other. You're doing a lot of things. Perhaps you can share some of your information with the House of Khepera page or through us at an app, and I will uh, slide the information through. Or you can also do that in the
I'll send you the sessions because some of them are past, but they're up and people could still access them.
Okay.
They
Okay.
I'll send
Okay, you can send us some links so we can see more of you and your information. Okay, thank you everybody. I think we are done. Next time, next session, Monday.
Yeah. I can't wait for the
rules-
next session with Professor Kimani, and also to get his view on how we could restore our societies, the Black communities, those kind of things that nowadays, how we can apply those African principles, science, to get through the journey.
Exactly.
Really
And
like
this is also this is also what Professor Smalls wanted to do, and also what Paul Obina wanted to do.
Yeah.
To see how do we apply all this knowledge. So that's because we are half through our session, so that's a good turning to go. It's a good focus to go from here. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for watching. Thank you for joining again. Feeling so, I don't know,
Honored.
honored. That's the word.
Yes.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Next time. Bye
One
bye.
love.
Bye bye.